Okay, brothers and sisters, we ready?
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
All right, so we're going to have a lecture this time dealing with, according to your program you have, dealing with cultural identity and intercultural relations. That deals with chapter 14 and 15. From our introduction, you probably understand why we are starting with cultural identity. We started with cultural identity because that's the key to understanding everything that is about a people. And you have to start with cultural identity. Since, in order for you to destroy a people, you start with killing them culturally and spiritually. So let's start with cultural identity and let's see what it is. Now, Diop defines cultural identity as the collective personality of the people. So, cultural identity is the collective personality of a people. The collective personality of a people. What does that mean? It means that all of us, as black people, no matter where you find them, in China, in Vietnam, in Africa, in the United States, in the Caribbean, in Haiti, wherever you go, there is what is called the personality that all of us have together. The personality of black people as a black person. Personality comes from person. So the collective personality of the people is what really is cultural identity. Sometimes people, other anthropologists, will define cultural identity in many ways. But Diop says that you can use all kind of words you want to use. However, when you look at collectively, the personality of those or group of people is what cultural identity is. And to make it more understandable and easily to look at, he broke it down in 3 parts. He said that it has historical factor, linguistic factor, this is an R, not an N. Linguistic factor, and a psychic factor. So that means that cultural identity, if we want to look at that personality, we have to look at these three aspects of cultural identity. We have to look at the historical factor, we have to look at the linguistic factor, then we have to look at psychic factor. This makes up your cultural identity. But let's look at the historical factor. What is that? Historical factor is the glue or the cement that unites a people as one. Historical factor is the glue, is the cement that bonds us, that puts us together as a people. Why is it important? Because no matter where you are today, you may look at somebody from the islands. They may have a different accent, from Haiti, from I don't know, from Senegal, from Nigeria, from Europe, from Asia, from India, from Vietnam, because they have black people too, from China. But if you study what is called the history different from histories. You have history with capital H and histories with little h. The history, from the historical factor, is a bond because after you take all these little histories, put them together as a black people, you come up with one history. For instance, the struggle of us as a people in America, or in Jamaica, or in Haiti, or in China, or in India. When you look at these little histories of black people, when you bring them together, you're going to find out that it is a common thread of the struggle they are going through to survive as a people. And all these histories lead us to one history back to Africa. So therefore, our history becomes the personality that defines us. I remember us doing a lecture at Rutgers University with Dr. Clark when he was still alive, and we had a panel, and one of the speakers was a black brothers from India. You've seen those Indians? The Hindus, the black people from India, who are sometimes darker than me.
Yes.
This professor from there spoke, talking about the history. And he spoke about the struggle that they went through, his people went through, that may even be, well, can anything be less worse? But it was so bad that he started describing to the people that when his grandparents were living in India as a black people, when they went to work in the area where white Indians live, they have to carry a broom so that when they're walking on the ground, their steps that they make on the ground has to be wiped out so that no white Indian put his step where a black person had put his step on.
Oh, Lord.
And when they went to work in areas where white people live, they have to carry a little bowl like this so that they will not spit on the ground that white Indians walk. They have to put a spittle in here until they get to the area, then they can throw it away. So these are the histories, right? You can look at the little histories we lived here with lynchings and all of that. You can go back to Africa with King Leopold II chopping off the hands and the feet. And so these are the little histories, but they have the same thread, which gives us the big history, which is the common personality, our common history as a people. So that's the first factor that identifies cultural identity, which is a historical factor because it's a glue. When you look at the history of every black people everywhere in the world, you study them, you're going to find out that we have been going through the same struggle. When we lost power, when black people lost power, thousands, about maybe 3,000 years ago or 25,000 years ago, all black people all over the world start going through the same thing. Whether you are on the continent or in China or in Japan or in Vietnam or in India, the same thing. So Diop says that history, therefore, the history bonds us together. That's the glue. That's what brings us together as a people. That defines our personality. So when we're talking about right now that we need to resurrect our people, it's all over the world. It's not just here, starting on the continent of Africa. Go to India. You know, these Indian dark, black people, you know, sometimes they come here, they think that because they're from India, they're not black. That the struggle here doesn't concern them. Because what? They're going to think of them as coming from India. And this is what this brother was telling the people at Rutgers University at that conference said, look, somebody may come from India or from Bangladesh or from wherever, dark like you, thinking that they're better than you. We've gone through the same thing over there, just like you. So he started describing these kind of things that were being done to black people. So that's the historical factors. Therefore, we can think of this history as the first thing that we need to learn, our true history. Our true history, we need to learn that. Why? Because if you don't learn your history properly, then you can lose it. Right? Because what's going to happen is, if you learn the wrong history, then that brings stagnation. Means you get to be like a frog in a warm water. You don't know whether you're going or you're coming. You think it's all right. And that stagnation then can bring an element where it can lead you back to, Diop says, even to return to barbarism. That means that you begin to look at your own people like animals. I told you what's happening in the Congo right now. 8 million people. It's black people killing these black people. A black man take a machete and he's chopping off a little child, a little black child. That's what Diop calls a return to barbarism. Because your history has been wiped out, you don't even think that a black life is worth, protecting. Because we have lost that history. So the first factor is the historical factor. The second one is the linguistic factor. Linguistic factor deals with language, as you might guess. Okay, what is language? Now, people who have talked about languages before me, they spoke of the fact that, white folks, when we came to the Americas, they made us lose our languages, our African languages, right? And white folks who enslaved Africans on the continent, they wrote down that the fact that African people on the continent were now learning in English, in French, in Portuguese, therefore they were losing their African languages, therefore they were becoming now what? They were losing their identity, right? Based on that theory, based on that principle, that's why when white folks brought us on these shores, they separated us. If the two of you spoke one African language, they separated you so you can forget your languages, therefore lose your identity. But that was true until I came along. And I discovered that that was not true. All these people have been defining languages as the words that you use were wrong. Because I discovered something else. Because you see, when I came to America, I went to Louisiana, and in the bayous of Louisiana, since we're in Florida, you might know what I'm talking about. I was studying science. I took courses in agriculture, so we have to go to in the plantations to go see, people working in plantations or in the neighborhoods, and I'll sit down and listening to the English that my people were speaking, and if I sit down and I close my eyes, I can hear as if they're speaking in African tongues. Then we go to New Orleans. I met a brother who was a professor teaching jazz at Southern University in New Orleans. So we'll go listen to jazz. And when you sit or listen to jazz, a black person, first of all, jazz itself is not the Europeans. It's 100% African.
Yes.
you can hear it. Or I look at the arts. Whatever area of art you want to look at. When a black person is using that medium, he's not expressing white personality. He's expressing what? His black personality. So I came to find out that white folks has defined language the wrong way. And by the way, this, even Africans embraced it to the point where we were saying, oh, because you speak French, then you cannot express your Africanness in French or in English, because it was not your language. Nobody even thought about what we said earlier, that all the languages came from where? Africa. Right. They forgot about that. But there was something better. What I discovered is this, that language is actually the expression of a people's personality. So this is the true definition of language. It's the expression of the people's personality as opposed to means of expression. As opposed to means of expression. And I'm going to explain what we're talking about. Language is the expression of a people's personality, since we have defined cultural identity as a personality of a group of people. Language is expressing that personality, the expression of it. What it means is that when black people are brought in America, they take away the Yoruba language, they take away the Congolese language, they take away the Hausa language, give them English. They take that language and they express their personality in music. That whatever you call it, jazz or hip hop or whatsoever. When they do it, this is the expression of their personality. Using the means, whatever means you give them. Whether it is English, whether it is guitar, whether it is drumming. In the Caribbeans, they bring them, they take away the language they use, the expression to create reggae, to create, what else? They dance in the Caribbean. In other words, when you put a people someplace, if they don't have a means of it, by the way, remember that culture is not just the spoken word. It's also the arts. And also the movement, the dance. Right? Culture is all of this. So therefore, the means by which you are expressing your personality is not language. Language is the expression of that personality. It's the expression of that personality, regardless of whatever means you have. So, that means that if you read the poetry of our sister, what's her name?
Nikki Giovanni.
Yes. Or Langston Hughes. Or any other black poet. Where they're expressing how they feel. You can never mistake that these are black people speaking about black culture. So that expression is what language is. Because it can be in the arts, it can be in music, it can be in literature, it can be in drama, actors, can be whatever area. So that's the difference, so that we as a people today can claim that there's no way you can lose your language. There's no way. They can take away the tongue that you used to speak before, because I have a child in America that doesn't even speak one of these African languages because it's hard. I'm traveling, the mother is African American, so, but when the child is playing basketball or is playing music in English or whatever he or she is doing, they express, the only thing you can express is your personality, your black personality. So that's why language is the expression of a people's personality. The means of expression can be anything. Can be English, can be French, can be Portuguese, can be Yoruba, can be Igbo. And this takes us to a different level. You see, you don't need to learn Yoruba for you to be an African. You don't need to learn Igbo or Akan or whatever language that the means of or the tongue that is spoken in Africa for you to be an African. To be an African is, what did we say? Culturally, mentally, spiritually. And we're going to talk about psychic. So therefore the linguistic factor tells us that that's what language is, the means of expression. Right? Now, some people will say, okay, but I need to feel that, I am African. Okay. So some people say, I'm going to get rid of, as the Muslims used to call it, the slave name. That's why they used to say Malcolm X. Because the name that my ancestors gave me was not, the name that they gave me here, because I was given the name of what? Of whom?
Slave.
Of the master.
Slave.
Mr. Kojo asked me about, what is my last name, and I explained it to him that they Africans didn't have a last name, no last name, because they will name you after your ancestor or your grandparents, so you have the name of your grandparents, so there was no last name. And we will talk about this tomorrow afternoon, that the Europeans, the system of having a last name was because you become the property of the person. That's why you have to take the name of that person. So you become they can identify you as his property. That's why European women had to fight for their rights. Because in the old days, women used to be properties of the man. So therefore, they had to give them the man's name. Therefore, when you became their slave, they also gave you their name so you can be identified as their slave. So that's why, some people have gone back to say, okay, I'm going to take my own an African name. Okay? Because you want people to do that. Because of the fact that the last name of family name that's its history. We're going to talk about it. But in terms of language, please feel confident in this, that we don't lose our languages. Because whatever language we have, that we use that to express our personalities as a people. We don't need to get another tongue. In fact, we have black people who speak African tongues who are slave mentally. Slaves mentally. Slaves of white folks. It doesn't matter what language they speak. Akan, Yoruba, Igbo, Hausa, Zulu, whatever. Mentally, they're slaves. So that's about the language or the linguistic factor. The psychic factor. This is the most dangerous and the most delicate. The most dangerous and the most delicate factor, the psychic factor. the most dangerous and the most delicate. Because after you know your history, after you understand that you haven't lost your language, if psychically you are destroyed, if psychically you have been murdered, as Diop said, then you don't even know what you're doing, that what you're doing is a slave behavior. In other words, if they destroy you psychically, that means that your mind, your spiritual thinking, the way you think about yourself, if that has been destroyed, then it's hard for you to even understand that I need the resurrection, that I'm a slave mentally. You do not know, you cannot understand that. So that's why it's dangerous. It's delicate because it can be so easily manipulated. Delicate because it can be so simply changed. They can take your mind and just twist it a little bit. Then you think, oh, I'm a white man now. I'm a white man now. I mean, forgive me, sometimes I use this example. I say, okay, all right. After you have black people. Who told me of the example of the brother from Namibia who married a white waitress?
Singer?
Huh? No, in Africa. Who was telling me that? Somebody just told me when we were having lunch, I think. You had this prince from one of the countries who went to Europe, to England, right? Married a waitress, white waitress. Took her back home and made her a princess. And so now he thought that now he had become British because he got himself a white woman. Psychic factor. Now, how are you going to convince him that he's a slave mentally? It becomes very difficult because psychically you can change it just like that. And the person doesn't even realize what they are right now. And believe me, you never convince them that, you know, what they're doing is, they're acting like mental slaves. You cannot convince them of that. It's a lot of this happening on the continent of Africa. People go to Europe, they want to be white. They learn French, they get a French woman, therefore they think they are now French. That easily, that simply. And so these three factors together, historical, the linguistic, psychic, makes up our cultural identity. But in order for you to 100% not only free yourself from this cultural debt, you have to develop what Diop called historical consciousness. We have to develop historical consciousness. See, we can study this in a book. We can study this on paper. But unless and until it becomes part of our consciousness, then it doesn't serve us. See, consciously, when Miss Rose calls me and talks to me about our identity and history, though I have not met her yet, but when I hear what she's talking about and I know what she's talking about, my consciousness tells me she has the consciousness, she's a sister. Consciousness. When somebody calls me and tells me about the British or how the Belgians helped me and developed me and all of that, and and that sister's talking to me, I know that's not an African sister because the consciousness is messed up. So our history, what we're talking about here has to become part of your consciousness. You can't just have it on paper. You have to live it. It has to be part of you, not part-time. Yes, sir.
Those of us who live and are socialized in the diaspora, how much of that African consciousness have we lost? And how can it be recaptured? What can we do?
Right. Well, how much you have lost depends on where you are in your knowledge of self. Dr. Ben, Dr. Clark, I'm thinking you have not lost it because you still think African. You haven't lost anything. That's why I talked about linguistic factor. That you don't lose your language because you lose the tongue, because your language is expression of your culture. When you speak, you're speaking as an African. You understand? You're speaking as an African. Therefore, you haven't lost anything. But you have young people, you have grown-up people, you have PhD people who don't even cannot identify with Africa. Today, you have Africans on a continent that do not identify with Africa today. I give you one example. I had a friend from Gabon who met a sister, an African-American sister from Maryland in Paris. They got married. They had twins. They came to America. They're living together. And I met this brother in New York. And you know what he's telling me? He said his wife is not African because she's not from the continent. What are you talking about? Oh, she's American. This guy from Gabon has lost his consciousness. He can't even connect with this black African woman that he's having kids with. He's calling her American. You follow me? Yes. So you can look. That's why I always say, brothers and sisters, you sitting here, you might be ready to be teaching some brothers and sisters from the continent, just like you sharing this with brothers and sisters here. Because they are as lost on the continent as we are here. So it's our job to teach them. And you know, I have discussions with professors from the continent all the time because they'll be talking to me from a white man's education. Scholars from Senegal, I be arguing with them about Diop. Oh, I don't agree with Diop because Diop, what he was talking about is from Africa. That's not what my professors at Sorbonne told me. As Senegalese, because the white professor told him Diop was wrong, he agrees Diop was wrong. That's how delicate this thing is. So we have to develop a historical consciousness. Because you see, as much as we can rekindle this culture, we can lose it. We can lose it. It can be changed. Once it is changed, we can be re-enslaved. That's why white folks in America came up with many ways of dealing with us, right? I know most of you know about Willie Lynch. Mm-hmm. Everybody knows about Willie Lynch?
Yes.
The young people in the room will not.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure.
Right? Miss Africa, you know about Willie Lynch? Have you heard of Willie Lynch? Miss Africa?
The guy who was lynched.
The guy who was lynched. Okay.
I like that. That's pretty good.
All right. So, Brother Dan, you got to do a workshop here on Willie Lynch. But see, this is what we're talking about. This is what we're talking about. Because see, until this becomes a part of our consciousness, then we will be thinking that, we are free now mentally, but we are not.
Yes.
But we are not. And the Europeans did the same thing on the continent. When the French went to Senegal, they said, okay, look, after they killed all the Africans, they said, now, the governor, the white governor during colonial time, all you have to do is take one of these cannons, a little toy, a cannon toy, put it on your desk. So when black people come, that cannon will be reminding them that we can kill them. So they'll be always afraid of us. So they will not disobey. To maintaining you in a state of a mental slave. When King Leopold sent the Catholic priests to the Congo, he gave them a letter. He said, look, you are not going to Africa to teach black people about God. They know about God already. They know that murder is bad. You're not going there to teach them about sin or about salvation or about God. They know God already. I'm sending you there to teach them that we are superior to them. For them to fear us. And by the way, always concentrate on that part of the Bible that says it's good to go to heaven poor.
That's it.
Right? So they don't think about the minerals and the wealth they have in their country.
That's right. That's right.
Teach them that it's good to go to heaven poor. This is a letter from King Leopold to the priest, the Catholic priest he sent them. And then teach them to fear us. Change the image of God, put the picture of white folks, so they know that they cannot kill us because we represent God. That's why I told you earlier why a white woman can go to Africa today. She's not going to be touched. Because she's representing God. That's what cultural identity is and how sensitive it is. And that's why we have to develop the historical consciousness. Now, your individual cultural identity is a function of the cultural identity of everybody. So individual cultural identity is a function of the cultural identity of the group. You hear sometimes some brothers or sisters, you talk to them, they say, look, I'm not in all of that black stuff, I'm not on all that, I know who I am, it's me. I know who I am. In other words, I know whatever I am, I'm fine with it. It's me. I'm an individual. I don't want to be part of that. But Diop says that that's a lie. Because your individual cultural identity is a family of, because you're part of a group that's called the black people. You have white people here. So because you are here and you say that you are an individual, we are all in this together. And I tell people, I say, sometimes they tell me that, I say, sister, listen to me. Yeah, I know you're saying, well, it's you here. I said, watch this. If we went back during the time of slavery, you and I would be a slave. white folks won't let you say, oh, I'm an individual, I don't want to be a slave. They will enslave you whether you like it or not. So that's why your identity and my identity are hooked together. You can't separate yourself from me. Because your identity as an individual is a function of the cultural identity of the group. That we are in this, all of us together. That's why I don't let anyone, whether you're from Jamaica or from Trinidad or from Nigeria or from Mali, come tell me that, oh, you're different from other black people.
That's right.
I say you must be, you haven't learned anything. Because if you learn something, you will know that we're all in this together. We have to become teachers. And please, don't back down from anyone that wants to convince you otherwise. I have had arguments with scholars from Zimbabwe, from Angola, from Nigeria, at symposiums where, you know, New York University organized slave routes about the history of slavery. So they invited professors from all over the world. Man, I had big arguments with scholars coming from Africa on this. Because they thought that because they were coming from the continent, therefore they were free from the effects of slavery. I said, brother, right now what you are displaying is the exact effects of slavery. Because you don't know that all of us are united in this, that our identity, our historical factor unites all black people from all over the world. Because you're coming from a country in Africa, you got a PhD, and you think that this slavery does not concern you today? You don't know that Africa was enslaved? So what do you think colonialism was? You can't separate yourself from all of us. We are all in this together. Cultural identity, a function of the cultural identity of the group. All right, now, so what happened once we understand these three factors and we develop historical consciousness, then according to Diop, then we develop three things. Then we can acquire, he called it perfect cultural identity. Why? Because then, as a people, then a type of cultural identity that can help the people survive. That what happened, no matter what happens, no matter who's attacking you, once we understand our cultural identity, we develop that historical consciousness, they can do anything to us. We can survive. We can survive. We can live. When we talk about revolutions, I'm going to come back to this. But right now, China has become a superpower because of this. We're going to go back to this when we talk about revolutions in history. That'll be Saturday evening, I think. But this is a good example those people are old enough who may remember the old days before 1948. You'd rather they call you nigger than they call you a Chinaman. If you were Chinese, they looked at you down worse than a black man. Before 1948. Chinese were looked down on like nothing. They were nothing lower than the Chinese. Until 1948, when Mao Zedong did his revolution. And you know what the first thing he did? When he took over his country? He closed the borders. Nobody's going to come in our country, and you can't go out. It took like 10 years. That's what he emphasized on, cultural revolution. So that they can develop what?
Perfect identity.
Perfect cultural identity. Make it become part of the consciousness of Chinese. After he finished that, today, Chinese people go around the world thinking like they are higher than everybody else. They're acting like it because once you have that cultural identity, then you're going to act like you are somebody. You're not going to walk around like you are inferior to anybody, white or black or red or yellow. That's what the Chinese did. That's why today they are a superpower. If we do it, we can become likewise. So the second thing is that because of this, we can, number two, we can start the transition. This transition to liberation. We can start the transition to our liberation. Because once our cultural identity you have acquired it, you understand it, you achieve the perfection of understanding the historical factor, the linguistic factor, the psychic factor. You develop the historical consciousness. It becomes part of you. Now we can start the process of liberating our people. We can start the process of change, of freeing ourselves. Because guess what? As you are moving in whatever area you're working, you know that you are an African person and that you are trying to change the situation for the betterment of your people first. And nobody can stop. That's what's happening to China today. And that's what we need to do. And then what does that do is stops the identity crisis. It stops the identity crisis. Because now that we know who we are, now that it's become part of our consciousness, now that we know how great our history is, our identity is, who we are, now then, we're not going to have any crisis any longer. Identity crisis. I know who I am. I know who I am. I had a big argument the other day in New York with some brothers who are very progressive in politics. And probably if I'm going to set the example here, and you also we may have some arguments, right? And I like having arguments, as long as we're arguing about our people. But let me give you an example of somebody who had no identity crisis. And you won't even believe his name. This man, when Bush became president, they proposed that he would be Secretary of State. And a white woman on ABC had an interview with him. And they told him, they said, look, Bush said that Africa is not on the interests of the United States, you know. So you, Colin Powell, they say that you're going to become Secretary of State. So what do you think about Africa? On ABC News, a white woman asking him this question. The first words that came out of Colin Powell on national TV was this: I am an African. I am an African. Colin Powell. You know who I'm talking about?
Yes.
On national TV, the first words that came out of Colin Powell's mouth was, I am an African. Think about that. I don't know if you know how deep that is.
It is deep.
Huh? I don't know if you know how deep that is. Especially the image of Colin Powell being a Republican, working with Republicans. Huh? The first words out of his mouth on national TV is, I am an African. Think about that. For this man, there is no identity crisis for him. You may not like his politics. You may not like what he's doing. You may not like how he's making his money.
Right.
But he knows that he's what? An African.
African. That's right.
That's how deep that is. When you no longer have an identity crisis, that's how you speak. And I tell you, and brothers and sisters, if it weren't for Colin Powell, the Congo would have been broken apart in 5 small countries. I wrote to Colin Powell. Because Bill Clinton had put a Jew in charge of African politics. And this Jew had decided and published that he was going to cut up the Congo in 4 small countries. And they were doing this until, man, the Democrats lost the election. Bush won. And the ancestors did that so that Colin Powell would become Secretary of State. Not the sister, Condoleezza Rice. Colin Powell. So we wrote to him. And guess what? I did research. You can always do research. When I did research on Colin Powell to find out how this man spoke like that, you know what? Colin Powell's parents were disciples of Marcus Garvey. That's what I found out. So the parents had taught their son. So the son had no identity crisis in spite of. So when I wrote to him, I told him, I said, look, I was at City College, I said, and you finished at City College. I lived in the Bronx, and you grew up in the Bronx. And by the way, I know your parents were Marcus Garvey's disciples. Africa for the Africans. So I say now, if the Congo breaks down, everything goes down. And guess what? The brother got the Jew guy to resign. Fine. And Colin Powell commanded that Rwanda and Uganda that had invaded the Congo, that they take the troops out of the Congo. And because of the stuff he would, by the way, have you heard of the $5 billion that Bush sent to treat AIDS in Africa? Anybody has heard of that?
Yes.
That the only president in the United States that had put that kind of money for Africa, it wasn't Bush.
It was
It was Colin Powell that put that money in the budget. $5 billion for Africa. For health issues.
But Bush has the name, though.
Exactly. Bush got the credit. He went there to dance in Africa.
Yeah, it was there, yeah.
In Ghana, it's the highway.
And check this out. Colin Powell was removed as Secretary of State for the second term. Think about it.
He did his
He
job.
couldn't be there for the second term, so they put Sister Condoleezza Rice. Yes, Brother John. Now we're going to start the discussion now. Come on.
No, I'm on a different topic.
Okay.
I want to ask you about cultural identity
Yes.
and the Congo
Mm-hmm.
and Tanzania.
I said all over Africa, brother.
Yeah, but Julius Nyerere was head of of Tanzania,
Mm-hmm.
and you had Mobutu
In the Congo.
in the Congo.
Yes.
Now Mobutu betrayed himself. I'm saying betrayed
You're right.
himself as
Africa.
having being African and having cultural identity, wearing
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
wearing African
Yes,
attire
brother.
all the time.
Yes.
Julius-
Authenticity, they call it.
Yeah,
Authenticity.
authenticity. Julius Nyerere took no part of that.
Yes.
What part is?
But Julius Nyerere had also a politics about African culture where he never wore no ties, but he was to develop the mind of Africans. He's a problem. He's a problem. Julius Nyerere did not implement that throughout his country,
Right.
Tanzania.
Right.
Remember, you have to teach everybody in the country.
That's the question.
Not just you. You can't be walking around, okay, I wear African clothes so to show my African identity, but you don't teach your people. Mobutu's authenticity
But he was.
did not come from him. A brother who had studied in America, just like I did, went back and told him, look, if you implement your African authenticity, go back to your African identity, people are going to love you. So he did that in 1973, 1971.
Right.
Congo became Zaire. We got rid of all European names.
Right.
Mobutu, by the way, the whole world respected people from Zaire at the time. But guess what? When people say we want democracy, Mobutu said, okay, you can go back to your European names.
Oh.
Now you can go back and you can become Joseph or whatever. I don't care about authenticity anymore. In other words, remember what I said, it has to be part of what?
The mind.
Your consciousness. If you don't develop your historical consciousness, it can revert back. Remember I said? So that's what happened. Right? So that's why, brothers and sisters, it has to become part of your consciousness. Otherwise, it cannot work. Yes, Brother Kojo.
We have been introduced to a variety of religious ideologies. Does any of this religious teaching interfere with our Africanness?
Go to your introduction in Diop's book. Brother, attempt to open page. Page 3. Page 3. I want you to follow this paragraph I'm going to read. Page 3, the second to the last paragraph, everybody. The second to the last paragraph. Follow with me as I read. Insofar as Egypt is the distant mother of Western cultures and sciences, as it will emerge from the reading of this book, and we're going to study that, most of the ideas that we call foreign are oftentimes nothing but mixed up, reversed, modified, elaborated images of the creations of our African ancestors, such as Judaism, Christianity, Islam, dialectics, the theory of being, the exact sciences, arithmetic, geometry, mechanical engineering, astronomy, medicine, literature, novel, poetry, drama, architecture, the arts, etc. Brother Kojo, does it answer your question? Thank you very much. In other words, which is a good question. In other words, until, you see, when we reverse the cultural identity, that we understand that it's ours, we invented that.
That's right. And you know it.
That we invented this. Therefore, it's no longer a problem. Now, you know what happened? In Africa, black people think that Christianity is a white creation.
It's not.
That Jesus is white.
It's not.
That God is white.
Right.
Right? Now, Islam, the Muslims believe that Allah is white, that Muhammad is the only prophet, that if you're not with Muhammad, you're dead. So now you have Nigerians, Christians, killing Nigerians, Muslims.
Yeah.
Nigerian Muslims killing Nigerian Christians. Why? For lack of knowledge.
Exactly. Exactly.
Because they don't know. They don't know that all of these things are our creations.
And
That exactly. Exactly.
You,
Yes, ma'am.
you know, it's really hard to speak about this, but in the days of the 60s, the end of the 50s, when the African unity was beginning to develop with the Kwame Nkrumah, people wrote books about it, that he was for his time. He wanted the people to get together. He wanted the African personality, which is your cultural identity. He called it the African personality. He took from the West, he took from the East, and he tried to mold our people into being who they truly are. I lived in Ghana at that time, but the people were influenced, greed, of course, and jealousy influenced their lack of accepting what he was trying to do. And of course, you know, they overthrew him. And religion, in the old African books, you will see that the Cinderella stories, the birth of Christ, and all of these things that you have presented as white are all in the African history.
They're all African.
They're all African.
That's true.
There's God, there's everything,
Okay.
but it's been distorted.
So therefore, brothers and sisters, so we have to have cohesiveness. We have to have a togetherness.
Unity.
We have to have unity, if you want to use the word, of who we are as a people. Our cultural unity. Now, by the way, it doesn't mean that we're going to agree on everything, right? Like I told you, I gave the example of Colin Powell. Hey, you might not agree with his politics, but guess what? The man says, I am an African. I know I am an African. If you know you are an African, all right, brother, we disagree, but I'm not going to kill you. Right? That's what that cohesiveness does. That's what the unity does for us. Now we feel as we are one. Everybody disagrees. In Africa, they show you the fingers. They say they're all not one level. They're not even, right? But they are all work together. So when your brother or sister disagrees with you, you don't need to kill her or him, because you all can work together for the liberation of our people. But because of that cultural identity, we don't have that. Therefore, we can act out as savages. So let's look at what is the better protection we have. Before we talk about the protection, let's talk about cultural aggression. Cultural aggression. I told you that in the early 1990s, where black studies departments start coming up big, right? White folks in America, the white power structure in America, knew the danger of black history departments in terms of the liberation of black people. Right?
That's right.
So what did they start? Cultural aggression. They decided that we have to destroy these institutions. We have to destroy them because if we don't, these people are going to rediscover who they are. And if they do,
We're in trouble.
we're in trouble.
That's right. They can all in there.
Cultural aggression.
That's right.
Cultural aggression. That's why you see, for us to be together, we have to rediscover cultural identity as we discussed already and develop that what we talked about, historical consciousness. Once we have that, we can resist an identity crisis so that when cultural aggression comes, we are ready. When cultural aggression comes, we are ready. Why? Because we can resist and we can fight back. I think, brothers and sisters, the continent of Africa is maybe the wealthiest in the world
Yeah.
in terms of resources.
Everything.
Gaddafi alone was spending billions of dollars trying to help the whole of Africa. And if the other African leaders had the consciousness that Gaddafi had, they had joined with him,
That's why he
every one of us who is here could go to Africa today and get a paycheck free, whether you work or not to get a check.
That's why he was killed.
Because that's what Gaddafi was doing.
And it's too bad.
In his country, whether you have a job or not, at the end of the month, you have a check. You have free housing, free medical treatments, free health care, free everything. All right? But most of Africa has not developed that consciousness.
No, and they kill you off when you do.
There's no cohesiveness. So therefore, they can sell out their people. They can let their people die. And nobody cares about it. Because if white folks don't care, hey, I don't care. You know, I give my minerals to white folks, they give me some money. My family and me and my family, we are okay. We have money in the banks in Europe, all over the place. We're all right.
No consciousness.
So that's what we've been going through, brothers and sisters. Cultural aggression. They're keeping us, yes, sir.
I want to ask about how a lot of this ties in with these leaders that you say, okay, they got the identity, but it seems to be that a secret society that's entrenched in this world calls a lot of our leaders to either become a part of these secret societies, particularly European Masonry, and causes these leaders to take on these type of secrets and watch leaders like Sheikh Diak get killed, and they'll keep mums the word.
Mm-hmm.
What's your view on that becoming prevalent in in our society?
Well, secret societies, my brother Dry Bones, have always existed all over the world. In Africa, the ancestors, the older people, they have their own little societies, secret one. When young people are teenagers, rites of passages, By the way, the sisters also have their own secret societies. The elders, they know what it is they got to do to let young girls become women and mothers. They will take them out to do initiation So secret societies have always been a part of every group of people. Here, the question is, what is the purpose of the secret society you are joining?
That's right.
And what is it trying to achieve? Right? Hey, all white folks' secret societies, whether it's as Masons or what's the other one?
Illuminati's called.
Illuminati's, all of these things. Guess what? They're copied and misapplied from societies of African societies, ancient groups of African societies. White folks just copied it the wrong way, misapplied it, make it to mean something that was different. And of course, black folks, because we don't know our cultural identity, we join these societies that are detrimental to us, that are not good for us. So therefore, secret societies will not affect you as long as you know your cultural identity. As long as you know who you are, nobody will tell you to kill your own people. Nobody will tell you to work against your people.
Right.
If you know who you are. So therefore, secret societies will not affect you if you have your cultural identity. Because look, you will not convince me to take up a knife and kill a little girl of 2 years old or 3 years old, no matter what. Because I know who I am. I know the value of a black life.
That's right.
Or of any life. Yes, brother.
Now, we understand, I mean, all of us in this room understand that part, but it seems like our expression has become so destructive. So how do we go about, because earlier you also said that you cannot tell anybody else who's not historically conscious.
That's right.
There. So how do we go about bringing us out of this hole that we're in?
Very good. Very good question. Very good question. Let's say the two of you are in a ditch. The two of us are in a ditch.
Uh-huh.
All right. You taller than me.
Right.
Okay. How can both of us get out of the ditch?
Okay.
You get out first, right? Because you're taller than me, or I put my arm like this, you get out. After you get out, what do you do?
That'll be straight down and help you out.
Do it.
Do you understand your answer now? You and I have to first, what? Reprogram ourselves.
Right.
Once we reprogram ourselves, then we can begin to reprogram our people. You follow me? I call it, first of all, we have to, deprogram ourselves of mental enslavement. We have to get rid of the mental enslavement that we have been put on in our heads, in our minds, so that we can rediscover who we are. Anybody has read Chancellor Williams?
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Chancellor Williams wrote a book called The Destruction of Black Civilizations.
That's right.
If you read this book, right, the solution for Chancellor Williams, he said that what black people needed first was mind revolution. That's what we need first. And you know when we talk about the mind, what are we talking about? That's right. Because once you have achieved it, then you can help somebody else achieve it. That's why I say that all of us here, whatever little you get, you need to share it with somebody else. Mind revolution. Now, after we have done that, then we can begin the process of not only lifting ourselves up out of the ditch of cultural destruction, but then we can reach out bring our people up. That's what Sheikh Anta Diop wanted to do when he got murdered. Because he knew what to do.
Yes.
He knew, because in Africa, if you are the president, you can impose anything on everybody. Unlike here. In Africa, if you're president, you can, like Mobutu did. Who asked about Mobutu? Yeah, like Mobutu did when this brother came from the United States and told him about all that he learned, the knowledge we're talking about here. He said, man, if you go back to your cultural identity, people are going to love you. All Mobutu did was write a presidential order saying that beginning this Monday, everybody, you got to throw away your European names. No exception. Girls can no longer wear pants. They're going to wear the African garments. The country is no more Congo, it's now Zaire. Boom! And it's implemented. That's why Diop wanted to become president. Because he knew, by the way, sometimes that's what it takes.
A dictator.
That's what it takes, that's right.
That's right.
That's what it takes.
Get it started.
So once you, guess what? Here, where we're going to talk about revolution, so we're going to know how we can do it here. But we're going to talk about revolution, so we'll talk about that. But yes, once you can do that, then once you achieve mind revolution, what did the Chinese call it? Cultural revolution. Chancellor Williams wrote a book like, I don't know, maybe 40 years ago or something. So that's what we need to do. Now, what is the best weapon against cultural aggression? And then we're going to take some questions so we can close. The first one is a feeling of belonging. A feeling of belonging, meaning that I belong to everybody here. Right?
Right.
Hey, when I came here, Sister Rose brought me here. Believe me, I don't need to have known you yesterday. we want people.
That's right.
Right, Brother Concho?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, we want people. Nobody's going to tell me that I need to find out who Nathaniel is. Hey, young brother here. Right? Unless he tells me, say, hey, man, I don't know you. Eh? But if he knows, he say, oh, yeah, this is my big brother. The thing, I belong to everybody here. Believe me, I'm not a stranger. I'm my people. Never strange. When I was a student, undergraduate student at LSU, man, when we went to the plantations, I went to the kitchen because that's where black people was. When you know, the white students would be there and, you know, waiting to be served, I went in the kitchen and talked to the brothers cooking there and said, you Africa? I said, yeah, you Africa too.
Good for you.
And they started laughing and we started hugging. A feeling of belonging. We are one people.
People. That's right.
We are one people. People have died for that.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Huh? People have died for that. Brothers and sisters.
Still
Just for us to be one people.
Yes.
Once you have that, nobody can tell you something else. Like, you know, oh, that's not your people. Or, you know, forget that. Or And you know, they always have ways to try to tell you what these other people, your own people, are doing against you. So therefore, you need to forget them.
Oh, yeah. Pull you down.
Right. Right. Propaganda. Remember that we are as brainwashed on the continent as here.
Yep. That's right.
True.
When your brother is sick, or your sister is sick, and somebody tells you, oh, she's sick or he's sick, you don't throw them away. You don't say they're no longer my people. A feeling of belonging.
You want to, though.
We are all one people.
Which chapter are you in now?
We're still doing 14 and 15. A feeling of what? Continuity. A feeling of belonging. We one people, we one person. A feeling of continuity. Meaning that, brothers and sisters, we're not stopping here. We are not stopping here. We're going to bring the others with us. That this culture endures. Endures, it endures, we're not going to throw it away. A feeling of continuity. We are one people. We belong to one another. I know most of you know about how the justice system in this country is some double standard. White judges, you know, when they catch a black boy in jail, when they catch a white boy in jail in his mother's house.
Exactly.
Right?
Today.
Our children in jail.
Yep.
Their children in jail in their mother's house. In other words, go home. That's your prison.
Yep. And they get away with it.
Well, because they know what they want. A feeling of continuity. We never leave anybody behind. We got to know that this is our people. But because we know who we are, therefore nobody's going to tell us to reject one of us. A feeling of continuity. Then finally, a feeling of importance. I love us. Brother Kojo is as important to me as a brother as anybody else. Nobody can come and tell me that this is not my brother. And we are important. We are the best.
Yes.
We are the first one. Huh?
Yes.
We are the first. We are the best. We are important. Our children are the best, are important. A feeling of importance. That means, as we're going to see when we talk about spiritualism, we are sacred. We are sacred. We are sacred people. Anything that is sacred, you can never try to destroy it. That's how we have to feel about one another. That's how we have to feel about our children, our brothers, our sisters. We have to feel like every one of us is sacred. We're important. Because see, when you feel that way, you cannot do anything to either destroy yourself or destroy somebody else who looks like you. If these young people know that they are important, that they are the best,
There's nothing they can't do.
there's nothing that they cannot do. And they cannot go and start smoking dope
Drinking.
because they will feel like I'm too important for me to get into that stuff. Only people who don't know themselves will do that kind of stuff because you're destroying yourself. The feeling of being important, the feeling of being sacred, the feeling of knowing that you are the best that the Creator ever made.
Absolutely.
And by the way, we're going to find out that every race on the face of the earth comes from us.
That's right.
We're going to find out about that tomorrow morning.
DNA proved it.
Right? And if everything came from me, how can I be less than anybody else? How can I? How can you? How can you think that you might be less than somebody else?
I always tell my children when I was teaching that we came from a people who survived a very, very hard journey. And we are the children of those people, the strongest people in the world, because we've been through so much and we survived. Look how we multiplied. We don't know how great we are.
Mm-hmm. And that survival, by the way, why were we able to survive? Because we are what? The best.
The best. That's right.
Because we are the best. Because we are the first people.
Survive.
Because we have everything in us that everybody has. But what we have, everybody does not have.
That's right.
They have less than we do. I was fired from teaching in the Board of Education because of this class.
I can believe it.
Me too.
Because of teaching it, I'll show it to you tomorrow. Genetically, because I used to teach biology, science. And I'll teach you that lesson tomorrow. But because of that, because it makes you understand who you are and how important you are and how great you are. And by the way, the sister was talking about facts. It is a fact, an established scientific fact.
That we are my first.
And we're going to see that tomorrow. And because of that, we have to elevate ourselves to a different level by first deprogramming ourselves of mental slavery. Deprogramming ourselves of anything that has been taught you that you are less than somebody else. Then reprogramming ourselves of our Africanness, of what we talked about today. Reprogram ourselves. Once we do that, then we can rise up and start helping others to come along. Yes.
I heard Dr. Ben say one time, when you study your enemy, you can find yourself within that realm. I've always been curious. Within the first, say, 10 to 15 years, we had outnumbered. Why did we just kill them? We had a chance to just kill them. I mean, when they came, they came in small numbers. It's like I still baffled at the fact they were able to come in small numbers and pull this stunt off. You know, we had warriors. Why didn't we not just say enough? Let's kill them, and they go back to.
We're going to talk about that.
Yeah, because I can't see how they was able to.
We're going to talk about
Because I couldn't watch them kill them, and I'd be like, we got to kill them. My personal opinion. There's no way I can watch it.
We're going to talk about that when we talk about the New Kingdom, the 18th dynasty. We're going to talk about because that's when things start going bad for us. How we allowed those that we used to educate,
Right.
those that we used to control, how did we allow them
Yeah. Like, we should
to take over
kill
and begin to control us?
Self-esteem.
Right. So we'll talk about that. All right, so the lecture culture identity stops there. If we have any questions, we got a few minutes. Anything that we talked about today that you have a question about? Any questions? Yes, sir. Brother Kojo.
I want to ask you about quite a question. But I want to thank you for this inspirational talk.
Okay.
And I hope that God will bless you
Yes.
and keep your voice strong.
Yes, sir.
And your memory sharp.
Yes, right.
So that you'll continue
Yes,
to
sir.
serve our people.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
What type of risk will you be exposed to? Will you be exposed to the same kind of risk? Like Sheikh Diop put in jail, Lumumba
Yes.
being killed,
Yes.
and Nkrumah
Yes.
being exiled.
Yes,
If you should take this message
yes,
back to the homeland
yes,
and share it
Yes.
with our brothers and sisters
yes.
who are still in a state of mental slavery.
Yes.
What type of risk will you be exposed to?
The same risk that you just spoke about. But this is what I believe, that everything has its time. There's a time for everything.
Yes.
There's a time for them to destroy our leaders.
Yes.
There's a time for us to no longer be destroyed
Yes.
and to free our people.
Yes.
So right now, I am fighting about the Congo, to try to free the Congo from genocide and occupation.
Yes.
And I believe that the Creator and the ancestors are going to protect me,
Yes.
so that I will not, meet the same fate as my elders, so that we can help our people.
Thank you.
Yes. So there is a protector, and we have Him that created us, and the ancestors are watching over us. So in other words, we cannot be afraid.
That's right.
That's the thing. We can never be afraid.
All power to you, brother.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Brother
As
Coach.
well as the son.
Yes, Brother Coach. Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Otherwise, I'll turn the floor to you, my sister.
Let's give Dr. Ngemi a round of applause. See you all tomorrow